Hello, everyone. Welcome to Video Valor Conversations. It is great to have you on board. We have been going strong with several audio episodes these last several weeks, focusing in on Brigade-affiliated camps and or ministries that have the same missional endeavor as Christian Service Brigade. We wanted to take the opportunity on today's live roundtable discussion to talk about some of the deeper issues working within the camping world and environment overall. It's going to be a neat time. We have a couple of fun Brigade alum and folks that are working in ministry today in the camping world. Joining in today are two camp directors that I consider friends. They are like-minded in mission and to ultimately build up godly men. Sam Richbard is from Camp Hickory Hill, which the camp is located in Varysburg, New York, but Sam is located in Buffalo, right in the Western New York area as well. And Ron Mackey is from Deerfoot Lodge with locations both up in the Adirondacks near Speculator and in the Blue Ridge Mountains down in North Carolina. Both have a deep love for the Lord and want to see men and boys grow in the ways of the Lord. Welcome, guys. Let's start off today discussing your ministry context. Not everyone who is going to be watching or who is watching knows your backstory leading to this discussion in the first place. How long have you been in your current ministry spots, and what are the respective organizations doing to accomplish the mission of building up godly men today? Ron, why don't you get us started?
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Good to be with you and with my friend Sam. Deerfoot started in 1930. I wasn't there when it started, but I started in 2004, and it's had a single mission since its beginning. It's to build godly men. We do it in a Christ-centered community through wilderness camping. And we do this, we create a context or an environment of wilderness growth opportunities, and these foster deep relationships among the participants and also with the Lord. Every boy that comes through Deerfoot, we're committed to this. Every boy will receive focused attention from godly staff and will experience the Christ-like love and acceptance that the gospel presents to us. So we're more passionate than ever, I think, about our mission to build godly men, and we feel the urgency and the need perhaps more deeply than ever.
Sam, why don't you share a little bit about your thoughts, your background, and give proper context to where you are today with regard to this whole idea of mission of building up godly men.
Yep. Thanks, Jay. And it's good to be here with Ron. We don't get to see each other that often. This is great to do this together. I guess I'm old. I've been connected with the camp for 50 plus years. Camper at age 10 and counselor, started in 1977 at 16 years old. Junior leader, worked, as a collegiate counselor, then a program director, and in 1986 they made me the summer camp director. So been involved in lots of ways. Full time with the camp started in 2009, and enjoy being a part of what God's doing all the time. Camp Hickory Hill exists to glorify God by helping people grow closer to Him and to each other through camp, retreat, and conference experiences. That's our mission statement. And I bring that up now because it ends with talking about camp, retreat, and conference experiences. And I'm going to say that in each of those situations, we are trying to build godly men. The conference experience, the Lord has allowed us to be involved with and to run with Christian Service Brigade Iron Sharpens Iron men's conferences that I never would have thought that we'd have the ability to have this impact in the way that's there, but God did open the door for Brigade and camp to work together on this. And so twice a year we have men's conferences that reach out to close to 100 churches each conference, where we're pouring into the lives of men in a very special way. Retreat experiences, certainly in men's retreat is certainly directly focused on that. But even at all the other retreat experiences, there's young men that are helping behind the scenes, volunteering, and we're pouring into them while they're there. And certainly in the summer is probably the meat and potatoes of the discipleship of the young men when we have our same gender guys program. We also have the same gender girls program later in the summer, but when we pour into the guys, there's just that concentrated time of pouring into the staff, and then the staff pouring into the campers.
So neat. Love seeing how it plays out where you have that seasonal staff and you pour into them and then they pass it on, so to speak. And I know, Sam, in your audio podcast, we had the opportunity to talk about the importance of legacy if we were to replay that. But that's not why we are here, at least for this context today. Let's get into the focus of the discussion, the meat and potatoes, if you will, with regard to one of our main themes that we are going to cover tonight. And it's the it's the aspect of single gender programming for your respective camps. And this is something that is of the utmost priority in the context of both of your ministries. Why, when seemingly most youth-oriented camps have moved on from this model, why has this been something your organizations have remained firm on? Sam, let's start with you.
Yeah, we were established as a Christian Service Brigade camp, established as a property to be used by God to help those brigade leaders bring their boys out, to teach them things in the wilderness and to teach them about Jesus Christ, to just experience God while interacting out there. And it's never changed. Yes, we're in the minority, I'm sure. And there's wonderful camps out there that have co-ed experiences, and they follow the youth group model. And again, I love youth group stuff. Anything I say right now, I don't want anybody to misinterpret to say that I'm saying what is done in a youth group and what's done in a co-ed camp is not good. I'm not saying that. However, I can tell you the value of what happens at Hickory Hill when it is same gender, when you just have the guys there, and guys can be guys and they don't have to be distracted by the female staff or the female campers, because there are no female campers when there's guys campers there. And so we can focus on the guys and just focus on what's needed there. We can pour into them in a way that I don't think you can when you have both genders around the camp. And so, yes, we remain focused on that. We did interject about 20 years ago. At the time it was called Girls Alive. Christian Service Brigade had an arm of the ministry of women discipling girls. And so at that time, I was scared to death of the idea of introducing that at Hickory Hill. But one of the board members was persistent. And the second year he asked the question, I said, okay, we'll run a test program. And we did. And the long story is that there was a market for and a need for women discipling girls. And at that point, our guys didn't quite understand. Our guys staff didn't quite understand what we were doing. And they thought I'd lost my marbles. But I did explain to them, though, if ever I proposed a co-ed camp in the summer, that I had lost my marbles. Get me to the hospital immediately, because I fully believe in the same gender ministry aspect of camp. It helps during guys camp, and it helps a ton during girls camp too. We've seen God work and use it, and where it's one of our distinctives we want to stick with, and pray that we always will.
How about for you, Ron?
Yeah, I would certainly say amen to a lot of what just Sam just said. I bet if you asked any ministry leader of single gender ministries, you would be hard pressed to hear anyone say they would give that up. There are a few reasons I'm committed to single gender programming in our camp. And one is I think gender matters. And I'm aware of how controversial that statement is in our culture today. That's a big statement. There is a lot of science that confirms what many parents and teachers experience, and that's that there are general gender-based differences in how boys and girls learn and how they experience their surroundings. And that matters for ministry. As for boys, we find that the environment we shape just brings all kinds of ministry advantages, and we get a hearing and we get the opportunity to pour into lives in a way that gets to the heart. One of those is eliminating distractions. And, distraction number one is the phone, but that has nothing to do with gender. But we do get those put away, and nobody has a phone and there's no internet. So that's a distraction that's gone. And that clears up a lot of space in a boy's life. But the other is girls, and that's not derogatory to girls at all. I mean, I say that as the dad of 3 daughters. I would say the same statement if the genders were reversed. Here's what I've seen again and again is when adolescent boys are together with just boys, they relate as brothers. But when you bring an adolescent girl into that room, suddenly the dynamic changes. The boys relate differently. And now they are rivals vying for attention. And you see a difference in the sense of humor, the difference in how they carry themselves and interact. So when we can just get the guys together, we have an opportunity to create a social environment that they may, that we have better attention. We have a hearing. Another is mentoring is super powerful with boys. I'm sure it is with girls, but I've seen it with the boys. These counselors, college age guys who love Jesus, giving focus attention to boys has an impact. And I think all of us parents who have kids, we know this experience of something we've been trying to tell our kids, and then somebody cool comes along and says the same thing. And the kids think they're a genius, right? And we're like, wait, I've said that forever. Well, I don't care who says it, but I know that when an impressive, godly young man gives focus attention to a boy and starts celebrating Jesus, that makes an impact. And then they get to experience this brotherhood becomes a faith-based community where they live the way of Christ and they push into challenges together, and there's a bond that happens. All of that, it's like a stew or a recipe or the ingredients of a potent, relationally rich environment where boys grow close to one another. They get beyond the surface and they grow close to Jesus. And it is not a smoke and mirrors and a fake mountaintop experience. It's impactful and it lasts forever. I know that those same kinds of things that can happen in mixed gender ministries. I know there's powerful mixed gender ministries out there, but man, there are such advantages when you get the boys and the girls apart and just give them attention as a group. And we're seeing that at our camp. And I can tell that it happens at Hickory Hill as well.
So with regard to this, have your respective organizations ever considered changing how they did approach this way of doing camp, like other organizations have? And if so, what were the conversations like, if you were part of them? What were the conversations like surrounding this notion? What sort of pushback from either side have you heard about this in your leadership roles? Now, Sam, you alluded to the notion of bringing in girls from that angle. Maybe you can allude to that more. Maybe you can build onto that a little bit more in answering that question. But what are your thoughts? Ron, let's start with you on this one.
Well, we've been doing the same thing since 1930, but it's with constant evaluation. We are forever evaluating how to carry our mission. And we'll be doing it again this summer when our board meets with a special focus on what do we mean by building godly men. We don't want that to become cliche. It needs to be unpacked and understood. And how are we doing it? What's effective and how should we be doing it? Understanding our times, understanding the worldview assumptions boys bring with them to camp is critical, because it's possible that our ministry would be answering questions they're not asking. So we want to know what the questions are that they're asking, whether consciously and overtly or subconsciously and intuitively. We're just determined to go deeper and deeper and become more effective with our mission to build godly men. So to that extent, it's constantly changing. I liken it to, we're all campers here. So imagine canoeing in swift current. You have to stay busy to keep your canoe moving the right direction. You're constantly using strokes and certain kinds of J strokes and rudders and crossbow rudders, and just to keep in line with the current. And that's what it takes to run a ministry today, because it is swift water times, and you have to pay attention. We would, and we have changed program elements that hinder or don't enhance the mission. We've said no to program ideas and opportunities that, while being fun or even good, they don't help us move the mission ball down the field. So we try to be disciplined in keeping our eye on the ball. And just lastly, incidentally, in the 50s, Deerfoot did dabble with a girls' camp. We had a girls' camp for about 4 years. And as I understand the story, it wasn't in our wheelhouse. There was a decision that we're just going to do one thing as well as we can. We'll focus on the boys. And about that time, a friend ministry, Camp of the Woods, started a girls' camp called Tapawingo and Speculator. And I think the pressure was off. They've got the girls, we'll take the boys.
I just kayaked around that island this past weekend.
Yeah,
with my wife, which was really cool. Anyway, fun stuff. How about you, Sam?
Ron, I love the way you said that we're always evaluating. It's so important. We want to serve with excellence. We always say that in our meetings, with excellence, with humility, with love. It's sort of our mantra with that, but with excellence. And you can't do that without evaluating. You're always evaluating. I don't remember anyone ever fully proposing going to co-ed, though. If you're asking if we ever went that, I don't think so, because as we evaluate and at this point, as we evaluate and determine, are we meeting the goals that we've set forth, we believe we are. And as Ron says, we keep tweaking, we keep moving that canoe in the right direction. But I don't think at least my memory is bad, so maybe somebody will remember. I don't ever remember a conversation of, should we go co-ed? If ever that happens, and if God leads us there, okay. But I don't see that on the near horizon as he guides us. Yeah, I know one thing I was going to say is that instead of pushback, I know a lot of parents that love the fact that we offer same gender ministry. That's what they want their kids. There's some that would like their kids gone the same week, though, and so they wish there was some way to have the same gender ministry offered at the same time. But I know a lot of parents that understand well what Ron was saying before about how kids act differently when both genders are there. And the parents I'm thinking about, which are so many, they are very appreciative that our leadership wants to have same gender ministry. Yeah.
Obviously, with regard to these convictions and these organizational elements that you both have in play with Hickory Hill and with Deerfoot, there are going to be boundaries that come into play in order to remain focused. Are there organizational boundaries that you've had to incorporate or that you've seen incorporated under your leadership to make sure the ministry remains true to the single gender way of programming? And if so, what are some of these boundaries, and have they helped? Sam, why don't you get us started on that one?
Yeah. With all the discussion on gender issues nowadays, many Christian organizations have been guided to shore up their bylaws, their statement of faith, other documents like that, to make it very clear that we follow, first of all, what God's word says, and to make sure that our documents say that very clearly, so that there's no misunderstanding. If a judge looked at this to find out where we stand, to know that we stand on God's word, and then to describe what we believe that says in terms of gender, and thereby at least praying that this will protect us if a situation comes up, and this world is a crazy world, So who knows what will happen, but we haven't had any major pushbacks like that, but we have been guided to prepare for it. And so we have and continue to prepare to be strong in that regard.
Thank you, Sam. Ron, your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, for sure. As soon as you raise the subject of gender, there are tar pits and tripwires all over the place in that conversation. But it's still an important conversation, so we ought not avoid it. I think for Deerfoot, we are zealous about our mission. We want to do our one thing very well as we can. And our one thing is building godly men. We know it's not all that needs to be done in this world for the kingdom of Christ, but it is the thing the Lord called us to do. So we do say no to a lot of ideas that are good ideas, and it's challenging to say no to good things, right? But we say no to a lot of ideas and opportunities so that we can say yes to that one thing, that we can put our best effort to our particular charge, and that's to build godly men in this Christ-centered community through wilderness camping. So ideas come, and sometimes they come from within. We have imaginations and we're like, wait, we could do this. But the question is, should we do this? And what's the impact on the overall mission? And then ideas come to us externally. People say, would you consider this? Or I think you should do this. And again, these have to be filtered through what has God called us to do. And whenever we say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. That's the nature of commitment. When I said I do to my wife at that altar, I said I don't to every other woman on the planet, right? Yeah. So that's the nature of commitment. And we want to keep our commitment sharp and focused on the thing we're called to do. So Deerfoot's a relatively simple organization. We don't have a lot of variations of programs. Sam's ministry has all the retreats and all these programs. We don't have any of that because I'm so impressed is his ability to manage all that. I have a hard time just keeping this one thing in order, but we're just trying to stay sharp on that thing alone.
I think go ahead, Sam.
If I can say, what Ron does is amazing too. 2 camps in how many weeks of ministry? So just don't let Ron make you think he's not doing much there. He's doing a ton and doing it well.
Well, I think that the desired result, I've got to believe this, is for a more focused effort towards discipleship with regard to the single gender, same gender element of things. Now, let's switch gears in our discussion moving forward, talking about the core element of discipleship that you see happening in the world of camping, especially in your camping context. In some of my interactions with regard to the audio podcast, we've talked about discipleship, and there can be different understandings of what discipleship is, what that word is, and what that terminology means. Let's discuss for a few moments your understanding of that word, the definition, and ultimately the factors that are involved with effective discipleship. Ron, get us started with that on your side of things.
Well, I'll try not to talk too long here because I have so many thoughts. I used to be the pastor of discipleship at a church. And back then, I really had this idea of systems and pathways of discipleship. And I had impressive looking charts and, observable outcomes and stages and phases. And it's like, hey, we got a strategy here that is going to change the world. And what I learned then and what I know now, I just know it, is that discipleship really doesn't work like a program. It's not about downloading content. It's about living the life of Christ in the context of relationship. And I'm not suggesting there shouldn't be formal teaching and there should be, and disciplines and all that. But ultimately, what we find is the impact happens as we come alongside and really give focused attention to the boys we serve. So we're set up with a staff ratio that is designed to do this very thing. Each counselor only has 5 campers over the course of the 2 weeks, that it's his job to give them all his attention, get to know them, to care about them, to listen to them, and to share his life with them, and to share the life of Christ with them. And the impact is extraordinary. And we hear about it constantly, how their time at camp was the turning point spiritually. So in that context, we're experiencing principles of faith. You can tell a boy that God loves him, but when he experiences that kind of love, that makes an impact. That's salient. That's memorable. And we're in an environment, God's creation, and encounters with God's creation also deepens faith. And so we take full advantage of that. I mean, I'll just reference Genesis 15, where Abraham, was wrestling with the promise of God. And what did God do? Had him walk outside at night and look at the stars. And Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. That very thing happens in our context, where a boy will stand on the edge of a waterfall and feel the power in the earth and recognize the dangerous power that is before him. And it begins to resonate that God made this. This is the kind of God I serve, this kind of power. And then these relationships, they just foster and they produce growth. So we have a culture of offering feedback, not like performance reviews as much as brother feedback, iron sharpening iron, where we're speaking into each other's lives. In that context, the life of a disciple, the desire to follow Jesus, to go deeper in, further in and further up, it really becomes contagious, and it is powerful and it's life-changing. And I can say it because it happened to me as a 10-year-old when I grew up going to Deerfoot, and I've seen it in countless others.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. Sam?
Love it. Love it. Yeah, the process of helping someone become more like Christ. I firmly believe what Ron said. It's not an exact formula, but it's coming alongside is the words I wanted to him, and Ron used those. Come alongside the campers, coming alongside the staff, and living life with them, pointing them to Christ. For Brian, Steve, and myself, our role is to pour into the staff. And so we will disciple those staff members like crazy. We'll come alongside them. We'll try to help them to see things a little differently and then to focus. And so we'll come alongside them, and they will come alongside the campers to experience, and to see what God does in their life. To see a staff member so excited to learn that God is using him. To see a camper now going home, and his parents excited because he wants to read the Bible daily. He wants to, if they're going on vacation, yet he runs back in the house because he forgot his Bible. He's got to get his Bible. And you hear stories like this, and it's, as God's changing life, where did that come from? It comes from our staff coming alongside the campers. How's the staff changing? I believe it's because from our senior team coming alongside the camper, along the staff to help them grow.
Yeah, let me say one more thing too. It's not for the faint of heart. It's messy, it's labor intensive, but it's powerful. And when you see your staff do this, I mean, I can get choked up with so many stories where I caught my staff doing extraordinary discipleship work. One happened just last year when there was a high need camper who came, and a lot of issues that he was dealing with. And see these campers leave camp, and they're going back to a lot of stuff, and you're not there with them. I found out a year after he left that one of our staff was calling him on the phone every week at the same time and just spending time with him on the phone, and then went and visited the family. I had no idea it was happening. It wasn't directed by us. he just did it because he had built a relationship with that kid and he cared about him. And it didn't just end because he went home.
Praise the Lord. That's awesome.
Well, you led us in that direction, Ron. And to put Sam on the spot first as a follow-up to this, can you think of any specific discipleship-oriented stories that, again, not sharing specific names, obviously, because that is something that is private, but can you think of any specific discipleship stories that you might want to share with our listening, viewing audience tonight?
Yeah. I'll first say that the best stories occur when I see the discipleship not just being Camp Hickory Hill alone, but when Camp Hickory Hill is teamed with Christian Service Brigade, is teamed with the local church. When Camp Hickory Hill is teamed with a college ministry like InterVarsity or some other ministry that's pouring into that staff member when we're not with them. We're still contacting them, but when other ministries are working together and the church overall is working together, that's when I've seen the biggest growth in our staff. And I know maybe everybody wants me to talk about campers, but I can't just talk about campers, because the staff, when they're excited and when they grow, that's when they pour into, like Ron's counselor that kept in contact with that camper all year. It's when they grow that things happen, that they care and they want to pour into them. I have several names written down, and I hope I'm allowed to use these names. They're good stories. Okay. One's a young man. It was a young man when we got to know him. Was probably 10 years old. Kevin Maloney.
Oh, wow.
Just the short story is that he was a terror until he put his faith in Christ. And we poured into him during the summer as a camper, and his leaders poured into him in the Brigade program back home. He became a junior leader in the summer. He became a junior leader in that local program back home. He's a pastor of perhaps the biggest church in Rochester right now. And God is using him. He's on our camp board too, but just the blessing that God allowed us to be a part of that. I'm not fooling myself to believe that we did all of that, but God let us be part of that. But right from when he was a camper to a counselor, a program director, and then God's using him in other areas. A guy named Dave Lilly came through the ministry as a camper. He didn't want to come to camp. He didn't want to. His parents made him go, and he was so happy after his parents made him come to camp. He enjoyed himself. He met counselors that cared about him. He also became a counselor and a program director, and he's a pastor now. And there's some stories about him when he was program director that we may get to. We'll see. But it's not just about the pastors, though. It's not just those who went in full-time ministry. I could list more of those, but there's the math teachers that are out there now that came through, and they love the Lord, and they're still serving the Lord in various ways. And their occupation is math teacher.
Sam, are you talking about yourself there?
I was a math teacher, but there's a couple I'm thinking of that are like brothers to me. One is a brother, and one's like a brother. And
that's awesome.
And the discipleship aspects weren't lost because they didn't become full-time ministry. They are still serving the Lord, and just it's in different ways. A guy named Don Gilchrist that I served alongside program directors, and he is now in the Washington D.C. area, and just again, men that are still serving the Lord wherever walk of life that God has taken them. That's exciting when we see that happening. Where they come as campers, early campers that sometimes you wonder if when they'll be under control. Then they become young men that love the Lord and grow and grow and grow, and it's exciting to see how God uses them.
Amen.
Awesome. Ron, do you have any additional stories that you'd like to share with regard to the discipleship side of things?
Well, don't start don't open the hose, because but I do want to double back and just second something Sam mentioned, we have paying campers for sure, but the mission target is just as much toward the staff, who I think actually grow more than the campers. And I'm probably, preaching to the choir on this call, but I doubt there's a summer job experience more growth producing for college age, young adult, young men than working at a camp like one of these. The experiences you will receive are formative, and they are transferable to virtually any sector of life. And so you don't, not only getting paid, you're getting grown in a way that's going to carry. And so much of my time is spent with staff members, and we have a practice of one-on-ones where I just walk the camp road with these guys. It's a mile each way, so it's a 2-mile walk, and I can walk a lot of miles. So we walk and talk. And one thing we've realized is, sometimes the girls, I think, want to go get coffee and sit eye to eye, but guys like to walk shoulder to shoulder. They'll talk a little more openly. And so we just walk. And I've had tearful conversations. I've had deep confessions. I've heard the frustration of young men who are sick of the cycle of living one way at college and then getting their Jesus on when they come to camp, and they want to be the real deal. They're looking for the single-hearted devotion to Jesus, and they wonder if it's really possible. The battle against porn and all kinds of sensual temptations of our time, that is unlike anything I could imagine when I was a kid, and they're in the thick of it. I just can't even overstate how rich and meaningful and potent these experiences are for the rest of life.
Talking about this a little bit more and tying in our first two subject matters a little bit with regard to the single gender aspect of things and discipleship. And some of this is circling back, and at the risk of sounding redundant, how has the single gender setup or same gender setup assisted both of your camps in the area of disciple making? Sam, get us started.
Yeah, maybe my answers will sound repetitive too, but but it's okay. It's good. But that idea again of setting up the situation so that it's a good situation, less distractions, to set up the situation so that the young men don't have to compete for the attention of that young lady is wonderful. And it's allowed for, I believe it's allowed for a ton of ministry that would have looked a lot differently. God can still work in other situations, but he's allowed us to work in a situation that we're very comfortable with that. Much more focused, can be much more focused on the needs at hand. The conversations can be the sexual conversations as the campers get older. The sexual conversations can be had in that environment without the fear of it being misunderstood by the opposite gender. And so it just sets up the ministry in a nice way to allow for the type of interaction, the type of conversations that we would like to have with the kids as they get older.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Ron?
Again, we get to create a counterculture environment. So we're set apart. There's no outside resources. We get to set the talking points, the experiences. We live together in community. Deerfoot is a 2-week program. We find that to be really important. The first week, a lot of great stuff happens, but the breakthroughs usually happen the second week. We get beyond the surface. Not having the phones, not having the girls, and having a program that is designed to bring about growth relationally among the boys, and also growth physically, emotionally. It creates a really, really powerful environment where boys have ears to hear things that they may have heard dozens of times before sometimes, but now they suddenly hear. Jesus kept saying, "He who has ears, let him hear." Well, is that just a cliche? You can have ears, but are you actually hearing? And there's that moment when boys start to hear. One of the challenges we have at Deerfoot, it becomes a very spiritually rich environment. And I'm constantly trying to convince our young men that the Jesus they've experienced and encountered here at Deerfoot is just as alive and relevant and present out there in the world they're going to. And I had a staff guy on a one-on-one say to me, "I've heard you say that, and I know it, I believe it conceptually, but I've not experienced it. I just can't seem to find it outside of here." And he's like, "Why do I only experience it here?" Well, there may be a lot of really important answers to that. Is he really experiencing Jesus, or is it just the euphoria of the brotherhood? And helping him understand how to experience Jesus. But the reality is they sense something, they experience something in this context, and then they spend the rest of their lives looking for it. And hopefully there are churches and there are other groups and brigade systems that they can tie into where they're finding Jesus living and active in that environment as well.
Good. We've talked about the single gender nature of things with ministry. We've talked about the core element of discipleship. Let's shift our gear towards the third and final component I want to leave everyone with for the next 10, 15 minutes or so. If we have time for some questions, love to answer those too. But let's talk about experiences. Oftentimes we might become conflicted with the desire to focus on fun or entertainment as this exclusive thing that drives what's supposed to be a ministry program. How do camps today, how do ministries alike maintain discipleship as the focus within the development of their programming, as opposed to let me make fun and entertainment be priority number one? How have you guys done that? Ron, why don't you get us started with that one?
Well, experiences are key. I think boys really track with experiences. It's what they love and it's what they remember, and it's a way for growth to happen. And we're really intentional about spiritually rich experiences. You mentioned earlier, telling a boy that God loves him is not the same as him experiencing that love. So how does that happen? I think Jesus did this, and I've told this story often with my staff, but the disciples spent the day with Jesus. He was teaching the crowds. They heard him all day long speaking about faith. He told them that faith as small as a mustard seed can move a mountain. At the end of that day, Jesus is exhausted. They get in the boat, and you can read about this in Mark 4, and they're crossing the sea, and the storm comes up, and Jesus is asleep in the boat. And the disciples are terrified, rightfully, and they're not weenies when it comes to storms, because they're fishermen. They know what storms are, and this was one to be afraid of. So they know what's going down, and it's them. And Jesus is asleep in the boat. I think they sound annoyed at him or frustrated. He wakes up. He may be annoyed because he just got woken up from the nap, and he calms the sea. And now the disciples are really terrified because they're in the presence of someone they didn't quite understand. And Jesus says to them, "Do you still have no faith? Why do you not have faith?" And what was happening there? He gave them an experience to teach faith. He had taught about faith all day. They may have had, a booklet full of notes about faith, but now they had an experience of faith, and it was transforming. There are examples like that all through the scriptures, where something we know up here gets down to here because of something that we experience, and we're trying to create those experiences at camp. And even, the program elements, they're all designed to do this kind of thing. And our counselors are trained to key in on them. So evening devotions often will key in on experiences that happened that day, whether it was in the midst of a thunderstorm or conflict in the group and tension in the group. These are experiences where we can learn about what it means to follow Christ if we push into them and unpack them together. So, in terms of the programming, we're really simple. We backpack, we canoe. We think the wilderness is the best activity environment. We don't need blobs and all kinds of games and trinkets. We're really just simple. We play in the woods.
That's awesome, Sam.
It's awesome, Ron. Yeah, experiences are huge. One thing, Brian Stevick, Assistant Executive Director, always is reminding our staff is, why are we doing what we're doing? Ask yourself, why are we going to do that? Why are we going to campfire? Why are we doing program? Why do we do devotions? Why do we ask? Just reminding the team of what's behind it, so that it hopefully is clear to our team that each aspect of the day has its purpose, has its role, has the desired outcome of wanting to draw that kid closer to Christ ultimately. Some of the things are just plain fun, right? There's nothing wrong with an element of being, the purpose is just plain fun. While you're having fun, you're building relationships. While you're building relationships, you're going to be able to share with them more later. And so we're always asking, why are we doing what we're doing? Do you know why we just did that? Do you know why we're going to do this now? Making sure our team has that big picture in mind, so that ultimately we want to see this young man, if he doesn't know the Lord, to know him before he goes home and to live for him. If he knows him, to have a stronger walk with him. Yeah, to know the purpose behind everything.
Yeah, it's good.
What if I'm sending my son to one of your camps and he's going a second or third time to your camp? What are maybe 3 or 4 traditions that a repeat camper really looks forward to in terms of an experience at your respective camps? Ron, why don't you get us started with that?
Well, the whole program is built on progression. So our hope is that campers will come all the years of their childhood life and then right up through their college years. Retention is the most important thing, because we know that our ministry, because it's relational, it needs to develop over a period of life. So the program elements, the instructional areas, the skills we teach, the hikes we do, they're all designed to progress. You start here and then you move to here and you move to here. And we have an awards and skill system that's similar, probably, at least to what I remember of Brigade and Boy Scouts, leading up to an honor award we call the Lone Eagle Award, which has skill elements and character and spiritual elements. I think it would be similar to like Herald for Christ. So, the whole program is designed to keep you from getting bored. There's always more. Every section of camp is different than the other section of camp. And as you grow through the program, you're getting new experiences, new opportunities, and new program elements. So whatever he did if your son came this year, he had some things that were left unfinished. And when he comes back next year, he's going to pick up where he left off, and he will probably have goals to something he wants to finish, and they'll get unfinished, and it'll keep carrying all the way through. And that's true for our staff too. They engage that as well. That hardly any staff person does the same job 2 years in a row, because we want them to keep growing and stretching and learning new things and having different experiences. I mean, growth is the thing we're about. So we're a growth factory.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. Sam?
One of the things that Well, as I interview possible leaders in training or other staff members that have come through camp, I get to hear those things that really meant a lot to them when they're campers. Some of the answers I expect, and some are surprising. Wednesday night cookouts are mentioned all the time. Wednesday night, actually starts Wednesday afternoon sometime. The cabin group heads off with their dinner to some part of camp just to do stuff together as a cabin group for the rest of the night. They design their own program. The counselor knows to guide, the time of fun. He knows to guide the time to spiritual conversation. He knows to use part of the time for one-on-ones, which is the next element I'm going to talk about. But the Wednesday night experience of being out there and having some flexibility as a cabin group is something that so many campers look forward to. And as a camper, when I was a camper, I liked them. I didn't know that it would be as popular as it is now. It's just what lots of people look forward to, lots of campers look forward to. I mentioned one-on-ones, which often happen in the cookouts, but they happen other places too. I hear leaders saying prospective leaders saying, I want to be a leader so that I can have some one-on-ones with the campers, because I know how much that meant to me. I know how much that conversation, how much it pushed me along in my faith, how much it challenged me or encouraged me. I want to do that for the campers too. That is awesome. That's awesome. Sometimes the answers to, what part of camp do they think about that they like the most is just plain old the people. And I love that answer, because it means that, yeah, the zip line's fun. Yeah, it means archery and ropes course, those things are great. But the thing that impacted them most was that somebody cared about them, that they built friendship in the cabin. And so that community is what they desire and they love and want to have again. And they want to share that. Those counselors want to share that with the next group of campers coming up. So I think those are the three I'll list for now, at least.
Awesome. And there's always more, right?
Oh yeah.
Right? There's always like the campfire night. There's always the pretzel bun dinner night. Something with regard to food. So many different elements, and it builds off of one another too. Well, we've had the chance to talk. I've had the chance to ask you guys a lot of questions with regard to the single gender, same gender dynamics, discipleship experiences. Let's take a couple questions from our audience. And Keith, you can go ahead and allow people to unmute or show their video if they would like, show their camera, if you will, for those that are part of things. And if you'd like to ask a question for Sam and for Ron, or for either one specifically about something, we'll take a couple more minutes. Otherwise, we can begin to wrap up accordingly. I can ask another question if you'd like. I've got a couple more, but if there's anybody that would like to ask a question, why don't you go ahead and unmute your mic and show thyself. And go ahead and turn on your camera. This is kind of that awkward moment where you are waiting in an elevator, remaining silent for the door to open up and get off on your floor. Any questions, thoughts, or comments? Hostilities, aggravations, anyone?
Cries of outrage.
Cries of outrage. Let's talk. I'm just flipping through all the screen here, making sure that nobody's doing that yet. Let's talk about camaraderie with regard to experiences. This is another question that I was going to ask you guys. What about those kind of experiences that are impromptu or unplanned? How has this been helpful in the ways of discipleship and or relational development for your campers and maybe your staff? Sam, if you want to take a quick moment to answer that.
Yeah, if I understand where you're going, I smile at this question a lot. This is awesome. I'll start with this. as camp director, I like it once a week, if a thunderstorm happens in the afternoon, to throw things off a little bit. I don't pray for thunderstorms every day, but I would love for something to throw off the general flow, so that a cabin group has to stay cooped up in this door for a little bit, or on this porch for a little bit, and changes the pace of what's going on and allows for some impromptu conversations, some conversations that wouldn't have happened otherwise. A couple impromptu program things that have happened over the years, just to, I don't know, to give an idea of what can happen. When we built the dining hall back around 2000, 2001, needed a parking lot. And so the bulldozer pushed off the dirt into a big pile and, got the parking lot fairly flat. Nothing's flat at camp, but fairly flat. Dave Lilly, the program director, came to me at supper time, says, "So, Sam," that was his way of, he had an idea that he didn't know where if I was going to go for it, but "So, Sam, there's a dirt pile at the end of the parking lot." "Yeah, Dave." Would it be safe? No, he didn't say safe. That was where I brought it in. Would we be able to use this dirt pile for our special? Long and short of it, whatever special idea he had that night changed to, there was stuff happening away from the dirt pile, but it all ended up on the dirt pile. Me too, with the group, King of the Hill, and in a soft dirt environment, and not a dangerous environment, and a crazy one that we'll never forget. That came about because we cleared a parking lot and had some dirt at the end of the parking lot. Another time, I told you I like those thunderstorms in the afternoon once in a while. It rained a lot that afternoon. We were on the porches, probably a little longer than I would normally want, but lots of rain, and our drainage ditch above the cabins was pretty full. The counselor came to me. It wasn't Dave, so it wasn't "So, Sam," but it was somebody. He came to me and says, "Sam, there's the drainage ditch up there. Do you think we could do tug of war over the drainage ditch with our theme?" And I said, "Okay." He got the theme going, and whenever something like this happened, I'm watching very carefully, and I go there to check safety and everything. It was a riot and chaos, but amidst the chaos, of course, just for parents to know, just like you would when you have a swim time and you use blow the whistle for buddy checks, we had to periodically call for buddy checks during this game, because there was so much tug of war in the water itself to make sure people were safe. We were about every minute or two doing a buddy check and seeing where people were, then resuming the chaos. I don't know if I'm explaining it well enough to explain how things that we didn't plan, they were just there, became a part of a wonderful experience. And those experiences just are part of what, again, as we've said before, a part of what binds a group together, part of what builds relationships, what allows us then to share Jesus Christ more clearly later on in the day.
Awesome. Ron, if you want to go ahead and answer real quick, I did have a serious question that did come through that I want to make sure I address with both of you, and I want to be sensitive to time. So if you want to go ahead and answer, that's fine.
My answer is very simple. Just I had a lunch with two guys several years ago, and they told me they basically said that we're best friends. We were in each other's weddings. One grew up in California, one grew up in the DC area, and all of their time in life had been together at Deerfoot. And it just stunned me. They were in their 20s at that time, that they didn't grow up at all together except through Deerfoot. And that became the most important relationship to them in life. And that just shows the power of relationship in a context like that.
Awesome. So here's, again, we're going to end on this question, and I think it's a really good question to end on. Given recent stories of abuse and accusations in other organizations, how do you protect your counselors? How do you protect your campers in the one-on-one situations that you have both mentioned thus far? And Ron, I'm going to start with you on that one.
Yeah, no, we certainly feel that tension that we're encouraging deep and meaningful relationships, but these have to be healthy and safe and the kinds of relationships. So, of course, there are all of the training and screening mechanisms. We're very careful about who we hire. There's both third-party abuse prevention training, then our own abuse prevention training. We spend 3 weeks of staff training before anybody gets near a camper. So we get to know the boy, the young men we have. And they know that if we ever have even the slightest concern about their judgment and readiness to be around campers, they won't be around campers. They won't be at Deerfoot. Of course, it's something we're very serious. But in the program, we're encouraging these meaningful interactions, these one-on-one times. I walk the road with staff. Staff don't walk the road with campers. When they do one-on-one times with their campers, they do these in public settings. So they're not alone inside a cabin or a closed door room, but they might be sitting on an Adirondack chair on the soccer field or on the grass over here or on a canoe out on the lake, but a place where there's public visibility and inherent accountability because of that. So that's part of the training, is to be conscious of the accountability need in that. But of course, it's something we're all very, very serious about. There would be hardly anything more devastating to not just the organization, but to the mission to build godly men, to cross that line and have abuse of a camper. It makes me want to call the words of Jesus. It'd be better for that person to have never been born. That's just a summary, but it's obviously something we're all paying a lot of attention to.
Thank you, Ron. Sam?
I'll just echo briefly. Yes, all staff screened it very carefully. And the specific answer to that question is one-on-ones are to be private, not secluded, and not to be in a secluded area where others can't see. Just like Ron described, they need to be visible. They need to be visible, not hearing the conversation, but be able to be seen very clearly. And so that we're protecting both camper and staff in that case, against staff against false accusations as well. So it's yes, what Ron said, ditto.
Awesome. Well, Sam from Hickory Hill and Ron from Deerfoot Lodge, I want to thank you guys for joining in. Any final thoughts you want to share? Any final word that you might have? Just kind of open-ended farewell statement that you might want to say, like, "Hey, Mom," or something like that. But in all sincerity, is there any parting words of wisdom that you might want to share with us? And Sam, if you want to get us started with that first, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jay, for organizing this. It's been a pleasure to share. I'll just say to those listening, if you have children that are grandchildren that are camper age, there's nothing better but to get them to a camp like Deerfoot or like Hickory Hill. There's lots of them out there. Get them to a fine Christian camp that preaches the gospel. We would say get them to a same gender camp like ours, but get them to a camp. The experiences they have, the growth that they'll have is tremendous. If you have a child or a grandchild that's of staff age, whether high school or college, or perhaps even yourself considering to come to serve. I know in our camps you can do that, and I encourage you to get to the opportunities that your child will have if your children are in that situation of serving on staff. There's no better job than that. They won't make as much money, but they'll grow in the lasting things that are picked up at camp are just tremendous as God uses them.
Awesome. Ron?
Yeah, I guess the thing I would just say is if become a student of what's happening in the lives of boys. There's a lot of data out there, and the boys are not doing well. Boys are declining in all of the key indicators in our times, faith and education. medication, emotional. Boys are struggling. And so I just want to call people who have a concern for the kingdom of God and hear his call to pursue the boys in your midst. They need our attention, and they need to know Jesus. There's a quiet desperation. And, we didn't even touch on some of the really serious things that boys are dealing with, including suicide and self-harm. We've had 3 in the Deerfoot family take their lives in the last 12 months. And so we know that this is high stakes and serious business. And so it's time for the church. It's time for the people of God to get really, really serious about the boys in their midst. They need Jesus, and you're the one who can bring them.
Well, guys, thank you again for your time. Thank you for taking the chance to further share your experiences on this whole idea of kingdom impact right within your own camps. I want to just make a quick programming note for everyone that is watching or will watch this in the future. We are going to have some more weekly audio Valor conversations pertaining to camp life over the course of the next 2 weeks. We will be discussing and sharing with Dave Steinson from Haycock Camping Ministries, and Ron has also graced us too with an audio podcast that will be coming up in 2 Fridays from now. And also our next video Valor conversations is going to be in August, specifically August 23rd at 8 p.m. Our topic is going to be on brigade resources and unit training opportunities for the upcoming ministry year. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a fun time. Registration is going to be opening soon. We're going to be talking about the details in June and getting the word out there this summer so that you can join in at the end of August. But Sam, Ron, thank you guys again for being part of things. Everyone else, thank you for being part of things too. Appreciate you, and hope to interact with you all again very, very soon. God bless you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jay.
Well, guys, that was it. That's just kind of a break for the recording anyway, but thank you again, guys. I appreciate it. And there were a couple comments in the chat if you want to check those out with regard to just Battalion's memorable impact and also exceptional program from John Hoffman. Great responses tonight. So good to hear from you all. Thank you for chiming in and sharing.
Thank you, Jay, for hosting this and inviting me to participate. It's been an honor.
Yeah, so good. All right, guys. Well, thank you. Sam, I'll see you soon, I'm sure. And Ron, I'll see you somewhere here and there.
If you guys are in Asheville ever, let me know.
Is that Billy Graham country? Is it Asheville?
It is. Oh yeah. He was near here.
Okay. Have to maybe take it.
God bless, Ron. We'll be praying for your training coming up starting Sunday, right?
Starting Sunday. Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be joining you both in prayer with that coming up soon. Yeah. So awesome.
Thanks to you both. Have a great
night. Guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.